I cannot come to a tournament and do only one thing. I must do the absolute most at all times.
Alongside Kitty Black, I am Star Spangled Hammer. We'll be announcing this game for you. For those of you watching at home, you're very welcome about the stream. Put a lot of work into getting this out there for you. Hope you enjoy it. I wish you could see the little command center that we've got set up over here. Maybe you can catch it during one of the camera pans.
This is very nice. I do really feel like we have absolutely everything we need here.
we aim to please. That's one thing that we do when we host something. We tend to go probably a little overboard, but we'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
I just told you I always do the most. I am absolutely in favor of that.
All right, we'll get underway here in just a moment. Looks like the ref crews are getting in position. And there we go. We are about to get underway.
All right, next whistle starts the jam, I do believe.
Magnum PIMP against Senior Wiener. Gatekeepers in black, Toronto in white.
Magnum PIMP makes a real quick run up the inside of that pack, pick up lead jam for the Gatekeepers. Senior Wiener seeing what he can do about that. And Magnum picks up 4 points.
Ooh.
Senior Wiener knocked to the outside by St. Louis's defense. As Magnum is back on another scoring run, Senior Wiener is now loose of the pack as well. Magnum PIMP, Shaw calls off the jam. I do believe I saw 8 points. Gatekeepers pick up an early lead at 0-8.
So a quick 8-point strike there for the Gatekeepers to put them on the board. Next up on the jammer line for the Gatekeepers, that's going to be Shred Astaire. And it looks like number 42, Luke Ness Monster out there for Toronto. Hulk with the knockout there on Luke Ness, forcing him all the way back is Spin Diesel. Meanwhile, Shred Astaire, your lead jammer. Ooh.
Shred Astaire is taken down very quickly by a blocker from Toronto who is now taking a seat in the penalty box.
Yep, first penalty of the day for Toronto, and that's McWilliams sitting in the penalty box. Meanwhile, Shred Astaire looking for a second scoring pass. Another scoring pass there for Shred Astaire. That's 3 so far. Sorry, 4.
Shred Astaire just on an absolute rampage right now. So far, he has scored 16 points and really sees no sign or reason to slow down. Make that 20 points.
Nice move on the outside there by Shred Astaire to pick up 4 more points. So Shred finally calls that jam off, but not before putting a 20 mark on the board. And it looks like he's actually going to get 3 more there. So 23, the total there for Shred Astaire. Big jam for the Gatekeepers. Static Shock now on the jammer line for the Gatekeepers. And it looks like we got a power start. So a jammer penalty on Toronto.
Oh, that gives the Gatekeepers a chance to score unopposed right now. And Static Shock is out. Hits that pack hard, takes a quick dip to see who he can get around, runs up the outside of Toronto's defense, and he is back out on another scoring run.
Toronto jammer is back in play. Evie takes them all the way back.
Toronto's jammer fighting St. Louis's defense. In the meantime, Static Shock makes another scoring lap.
So a 12-point jam there by Static Shock extends the Gatekeeper lead 43 now to nothing for Toronto. Next up for Toronto, that is Stevie on the line. That is Jamie Pacquiao out there for the Gatekeepers. Jamie Pacquiao quickly grabs the lead jammer for the St. Louis.
Cleanup on turn 1. And Jamie Pacquiao makes one more lap through the pack.
Oh, now we've got a track cut call on Jamie Pacquiao. So Toronto now with their first power jam of the game.
This is a good opportunity for Toronto to finally pick up some points. Let's see how it goes. That is Stevie pushing up against Monster Jam.
Monster Jam just waved to his pack saying, I got this.
D-Ray takes a quick spin up the outside of that pack for Toronto, seeing what he can do about St. Louis's defense, and he is out. D-Ray coming around the track, seeing if he can pick up the first points of the game for Toronto.
Spin Diesel taking a seat in the penalty box. So Toronto with a pack advantage right now, 4-3. Meanwhile, that jam comes to its natural conclusion.
That was waiting for confirmation from the scorekeepers. That was a 6-12 jam, bringing the score to 6 points for Toronto and 55 for St. Louis.
And now we have Cat Daddy on the line for St. Louis.
Cat Daddy fights through Toronto's defense, just pushes them apart, clears that pack, and is now on his scoring run. He is up on his toes, running through, picking up 4 points for the Gatekeepers.
Power jam comes to an end as D-Ray re-enters play. Cat Daddy with 8 so far, looking to add some more to the board. Ooh, loses his footing on the outside of turn 2. So
As D-Ray just clears the pack, Gatekeepers go ahead and call off that jam for a jam score of 8-0, leaving the score at 63-6.
So penalty called on Toronto's pivot there. That's 1-5-1. Biff Malibu sitting in the penalty box to start this next jam for a 4-on-3 pack advantage for St. Louis. And it's going to be Magnum back on the line now for St. Louis. Going up against, that appears to be, that is Senor Wiener for Toronto. Magnum PIMP is your lead jammer.
Senor Wiener pounding on St. Louis's defense in the back of that pack as they exchange high fives in a show of outstanding sportsmanship as Magnum PIMP runs up the outside of that pack.
Big shout out to Badger out there right now in that pack for the Gatekeepers. This is his first game as a travel team player on the Gatekeepers.
Is it? Well, happy beginnings to him.
So 12-point jam there for Magnum for the Gatekeepers. So your score right now, 75 St. Louis, 6 Toronto. Next up on the jammer line for St. Louis, that's going to be Shredda Stare. And for Toronto, that's 42, Luke Ness Monster. And we have a timeout called, it looks like by St. Louis. No, Toronto, sorry. That is a timeout, Toronto. For those of you physically here in attendance, be sure to check out the merchandise booths. There's a few of them located at various areas in the venue. And for those of you at home, make sure to go out to the team's web pages. Many of them have online stores where you can order merchandise. All right, about to get back underway here. Once again, going to be Shredda Stare out there against Luke Ness Monster. If you're just joining us, Gatekeepers in black, Toronto in white.
All right, Shredda Stare just absolutely glides up the inside of that pack with some beautiful footwork. Luke Ness Monster looking to answer to that, pushes up the outside against Jar Jar Bwinks, and Loki now has cleared the pack.
Nice hit out there by Evie, and now they're dragging him all the way back into turn 1. Gatekeeper's going to run this jam to get their blocker out of the box. So Yoshi gets let free from the box, and Shredda Stare immediately calls the jam. So looks like a 12-4 jam there in favor of the Gatekeepers.
All right, the score is now at 87 for the Gatekeepers and 10 points for Toronto.
So next up on the line for St. Louis, that's Static Shock going up against number 12, Stevie for Toronto. Static Shock, your lead jammer, St. Louis.
Static Shock dips it low, runs through that pack. Williams gives Static Shock a little love tap at the top of that pack. However, he is called for a penalty on that. Time for him to sit down and think about what he did. Just as Biff Malibu gets out, Static Shock calls off the jam.
So a 4-on-3 pack advantage to start this next jam for the Gatekeepers, as Toronto has one in the box. It'll be, looks like Jamie Pacquiao taking the line for St. Louis, and that's going to be Senor Wiener out there for Toronto. Jamie Pacquiao, your lead jammer, St. Louis. Senior Wiener right on his tail, however. Olsen headed to the penalty box, so now both teams down a blocker. Jamie Pacquiao with the apex hop to grab 4. Meanwhile, Senior Wiener unable to get any points on the board for Toronto. Number 9, Cat Daddy on the line now for St. Louis. For Toronto, that is...
I think
That's
D-Ray.
D-Ray.
That is D-Ray jamming for Toronto. I saw his majestic beard and knew it was him. And Cat Daddy jukes to the left, jukes to the right, makes it out of the pack. D-Ray is hot on his heels. Let's see if D-Ray can force Cat Daddy to call off the jam. And it is done.
Let's see if Cat Daddy was able to get any points there. Not seeing anything yet from the referee as he confers with the outside pack ref. 3 points for Cat Daddy there. 1 blocker in the box for each squad here. A 3-on-3 pack to start. And it's going to be Magnum PIMP on the line for St. Louis.
Score is sitting at 106 Gatekeepers and 10 for Toronto.
And Luke Ness Monster out there for Toronto. Magnum with a nice move to the outside, picks up lead jammer for St. Louis.
Luke Ness Monster looking for a way around the Gatekeepers defense. Luke Ness Monster, they're in, they're out. They are looking for a way through as Magnum PIMP keeps sliding around that track to pick up more points for the Gatekeepers. Four more points for St. Louis as Luke Ness Monster getting no love at all from the Gatekeepers defense.
Magnum with a nice head fake to the outside, but then moves back to the inside to get free of that pass. 12 so far for Magnum. I think he picked up 4 more there. He did, and that's going to call that jam off. So a 16-point jam for St. Louis. Shred a stare back on the jammer line for St. Louis. I believe that is Stevie out there for Toronto, number 12.
Shred a stare once more with his fancy feet making a run up the inside of the pack.
I got to tell you right now, that combination of Sir Nix-a-Lot and Monster Jam has just been absolutely nasty for the St. Louis blocking core.
The first time I ever saw Shred a Stair Jam was at Wheels of Steel several years ago, and I remember reading his name on the roster and thought, that man better have the best footwork I have ever seen in my life if he wants to carry a name like that. And lo and behold, he does.
Oh, we got a jammer penalty call, a track cut there at the end of that jam. So it's going to be a power jam here to start the next one for St. Louis. Also a blocker in the box. Williams again in the penalty box. Have to keep an eye on that. That's at least 3 or 4 now for Williams already. And it looks like we may have an official review. So full lineup of games today and tomorrow. At 4 o'clock, we got Magic City versus Pittsburgh Undead. At 6 p.m., we have the Mexico City Disorder versus the St. Louis Gatekeepers. And then at 8 p.m., our nightcap, Lane County Concussion takes on Magic City Misfits. And then on Sunday, we start off at 9 a.m. Central Time. Toronto takes on the Undead. 11 a.m. Lane County versus St. Louis. And 1 p.m. Magic City versus Disorder. And then we get into the playoff rounds where the seeding takes precedent. 4 p.m., the 5th place team will play 6th place team. 6 p.m., number 3 will play number 4. And then at 8 p.m. to finish out the event, it'll be number 1 versus number 2. So a whole another day of Derby to go. We're only about halfway through today, so a lot of great Derby still to come here at the International House of Derby Invitational.
Toronto called an official review. Looking to review a track cut. The referees have decided that the penalty still stands, so Toronto does not retain that review.
So back in action here, Static Shock, the jammer for St. Louis. Power jam underway. Senior Wiener wearing the pivot for Toronto.
Disco to Box calls Senior Wiener for a penalty, and he nods and says, yeah, I did that. However, it seems to have been overturned as Static Shock runs his way through unopposed just a little longer. Toronto's jammer has now been released from the box. Let's see how that goes.
Static Shock with a nifty spin move there going into turn 3 to stay in bounds. Picks up 4 more points. A third 4-point pass for Static Shock takes it to 12. Williams dragging Static Shock back to the center of the back straightaway. Olsen, meanwhile, dragging Senior Wiener all the way back.
And Static Shock calls off the jam.
So just past the 10:30 to go here in the first half. It is the Gatekeepers 154, Toronto 10. And next up on the line, it's going to be Jamie Pacquiao for St. Louis going up against, that looks like...
D-Ray.
Yep.
I recognize him by his majestic beard.
Oh, walking the tightrope up. Oh, he did not stay in. So a power jam here for St. Louis as D-Ray heads to the penalty box for a track cut.
Leaving Jamie Pacquiao on the loose and able to score unopposed for now.
GateKeepers doing a nice job as they have the Toronto blocker locked up at the back of the pack, giving Jamie the outside to work with. So the triangle at the back locking up low blow. And now they've dropped back even farther. Monster Jam up front playing offense. Power Jam comes to an end, and D-Ray gets through nicely.
Luke Ness Monster taking the star for Toronto, pushing up against St. Louis's defense at the top of the pack, seeing what they can do. In the meantime, Cat Daddy makes a run through that defense, gets a little bit of a love tap from Toronto's Biff Malibu, but Cat Daddy is out on a scoring run. Luke Ness Monster still trying to make their way through that pack.
Gatekeepers blocking contingent right now doing a really great job of like basically delegating responsibilities and just kind of splitting things up here and there.
Their one-on-one blocking is surprisingly sharp. Most teams don't play that well, spread that far apart.
Well, and the way they transition between the one-on-one and pack play has been very impressive as well. They quickly know when to collapse.
Yeah, the watching them spread apart and come back together has been a bit mesmerizing.
So it'll be Magnum back on the line for St. Louis. And it's going to be Senor Wiener out there for Toronto. Magnum PIMP, your lead jammer, St. Louis.
Senor Wiener is called on a track cut.
This is why you shouldn't have 888 and 88 on the same roster.
Oh.
Senior Wiener thought he was being sent off.
I thought Senor Wiener was being sent off. Anyhow, that is number 12, Shred Astaire through that pack. 151, Biff Malibu taking a seat in the penalty box. Time for him to reflect upon his sins as Shred Astaire makes another pass through that pack.
Again, the GK pack in the triangle and then like got broken up a bit. Did some one-on-one blocking, then immediately reformed into the triangle. They have Stevie locked up in turn 2. So 12-point jam there for St. Louis.
Score is now sitting at 188 for the Gatekeepers. Still 10 points for Toronto.
Static Shock out there right now for St. Louis, going up against Luke Ness Monster for Toronto.
Static Shock with lead jam for Toronto. Luke Ness Monster takes quite the love tap from Sir Nix-a-Lot. However, they are completely unbothered to make it out of the pack as Static Shock calls it off.
So Jamie Pacquiao now on the line for St. Louis, going up against Senior Wiener for Toronto.
Senior Wiener looking for a way up the inside of that pack. Jar Jar Bwink says,
Multiplayer block on the in the back sends a pip to the penalty box for Toronto, and that frees Jamie Pacquiao, lead jammer St. Louis.
Jamie Pacquiao picks up 4 points and is still on the run. Senior Wiener out of the pack as well.
Next up for St. Louis, that is Cat Daddy. For Toronto, that's D-Ray. Cat Daddy lead jammer St. Louis.
Spin Diesel giving absolutely no love to D-Ray. Cat Daddy coming through on a scoring run. D-Ray still looking for a way around St. Louis's defense.
So a track cut call on Cat Daddy is going to give Toronto a power jam here.
And since Cat Daddy was lead, there is now no lead jammer, and this jam is going to run the natural 2 minutes.
Marathon jam.
Giving D-Ray a chance to score unopposed. Let's get into it. Here he goes. All right, D-Ray. D-Ray gets pulled back. He is unbothered and going to try to make it back through. D-Ray is taking a seat in the penalty box as it is time for him to pay his debt to society. Cat Daddy is back up and re-entering the pack. Pack is back at full strength. Both jammers in. Just 17 seconds left in the jam. Let's see what happens. Cat Daddy and D-Ray both clear that pack. It is a foot race. We have hot jammer on jammer action here, folks.
Jam comes to its natural conclusion, 12-4 in favor of St. Louis.
Oh, 12-6 rather. And the score is, both of us are wrong. 13 points in this jam for the Gatekeepers, 6 for Toronto, leaving us at 2-12 Gatekeepers, 16 Toronto. It is intermission. We will be back with you in 10 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
It's intermission. Have a snack, relax. All right, ladies and gentlemen, about to get back to action here. Second half, St. Louis GateKeepers versus Toronto. Looks like Magnum PIMP going to start things off here for the GateKeepers as he did in the first half. He'll be going up against Senior Wiener. If you're just joining us, GateKeepers in black, Toronto in white. The score, St. Louis 12 to Toronto 16. And Magnum PIMP is going to start things off. Lead jammer, St. Louis.
Senior Wiener from Toronto does manage to fight his way past St. Louis's defense.
So Magnum calls that jam off, picks up 2 points to start things off for St. Louis in the second half. Next up, Shred-a-Stare on the line for St. Louis. Looks like Luke Nessmonster out there for Toronto.
Shred-a-Stare makes quick work of Toronto's defense, runs through and picks up lead jam. Luke Nessmonster not too far behind him. They are hot on Shred-a-Stare's heels. Woo! Luke Nessmonster does clear that apex, not before Shred-a-Stare calls off the jam. That was a 4-0 jam, putting the score now at 2-18 for the GateKeepers and 16 for Toronto.
So D-Ray out there now for Toronto. Static Shock out there for St. Louis. Static Shock, lead jammer, St. Louis. Four-point pass there for Static Shock. Monster, Nix, and Badger working on D-Ray.
Static Shock tries to simply dip and dive around that triangle defense from Toronto, led by Billy the Kid in the back of the pack. Finally clears it, gets through, and calls off the jam before D-Ray can pick up any points for Toronto.
Jamie Pacquiao out there now for St. Louis, going against Stevie for Toronto.
Jamie Pacquiao runs straight up the inside of that pack. Chooses the inside this time, figures he's going to mix it up a little bit.
Another scoring pass there for Jamie Pacquiao.
Jamie Pacquiao hitting a little bit of resistance for Toronto, trying to juke his way around that defense.
So star pass to Williams as Jamie calls that jam off. 12 points on the board there for St. Louis. And it'll now be Cat Daddy out there for St. Louis against Senior Wiener for Toronto.
Senior Wiener has picked up lead for Toronto. I can hear Toronto's bench just thrilled about that. Nice big apex jump from Senior Wiener as he clears that pack. With Cat Daddy not far behind. Looks like Toronto calls off the jam. Cheers and applause and just unbridled joy from Toronto's bench right now. And I will tell you, picking up lead and scoring over a team like the Gatekeepers is absolutely worthy of a celebration. And I do see an official review being called. We will be right back to you when we know what's up.
Just a guess, but I have a feeling they're looking for a track cut on Cat Daddy there, as there was a bit of confusion there as whether or not he should come back in behind the pack or not.
It did look a little questionable.
So the referees are done conferring, and now the head ref for the game is explaining the decision to
I see RDFM coming my way. All right, that was Toronto looking to have a cut called on Cat Daddy, actually. The referees have determined that the blocker who hit him went out of play, so he was under no obligation to return behind that player. Therefore, the call stands.
Meanwhile, Magnum PIMP, your lead jammer for St. Louis. Luke Ness Monster out there jamming for Toronto. So Magnum's going to pick up 4 and then call it off. Didn't realize Yoshi was in the penalty box, or I think he probably would have ran that jam a little longer.
Score is now at 2:46 for the Gatekeepers and 22 for Toronto.
Stevie on the line now for Toronto, going up against Shred Astaire for St. Louis. Shred Astaire, your lead jammer, St. Louis.
Stevie from Toronto is still looking for a way out of that pack, as Shred Astaire just glides past Pip at the front of the pack, makes his way through, picks up 4 more points for the Gatekeepers.
So a star pass here to 151 Biff Malibu. And that's going to force Shred Astaire to call the jam off, but not before picking up, it looks like 8 points there. All right, next up on the jammer line for Toronto, it's going to be D-Ray going up against that is Static Shock for St. Louis. Static Shock on the inside line is your lead jammer.
Static Shock just took a cute little jog up the inside.
So 4 more points there for St. Louis as Static calls that jam off. Jamie Pacquiao up next for St. Louis. Luke Ness Monster out there for Toronto.
Luke Ness Monster picks up lead jam for Toronto. And they are absolutely hauling it around that track to try and pick up some points.
Ooh. Spin
Hits
Diesel
the
just
floor,
put his
calls
shoulder.
it. I do believe I see 3 points for Luke Ness Monster.
Yes,
As Luke Ness Monster puts both fists in the air, as they should. Score is now at 258-225. Any points scored against the Gatekeepers are worthy of celebration.
So Stevie back on the line for Toronto, going up against Cat Daddy. And Cat Daddy, your lead jammer, St. Louis.
Cat Daddy just jumps over Toronto's defense, making his way around now on his scoring run.
Oh, and now a power jam here for Toronto as Cat Daddy sent off for a track cut.
That is Biff Malibu seeing if he can chip away just a little bit at St. Louis's lead.
So a forearm call on number 8 for Toronto. McWilliams sends him to the box. Big hit out by Evie there on the outside. That's going to drag Biff all the way back into turns 3 and 4. And now a full box for St. Louis. Cat Daddy started to come out, but then went back. I'm not sure what happened there. And now a back block call on Biff Malibu.
Time for Biff Malibu to sit down and atone for his sins, which is going to release Cat Daddy from the penalty box.
He's going to have to reflect on the ramifications of his actions.
They'll let him out if he's truly penitent.
Take a seat in the sin bin. So it'll be Magnum PIMP out here for the power start. A 4-on-2 pack advantage in favor of Toronto as Incredible Hulk and Olsen stand in the penalty box, so it won't be a long one.
Magnum PIMP shows us some sweet, sweet spin moves as he makes his way around Toronto's defense. Magnum now lead jam. Biff Malibu now released from the box, seeing what he can do about it. Spin Diesel picking up some style points, if nothing else, for that graceful run back.
So that jam comes to end in favor of the Gatekeepers 16-0. And now it's going to be Senor Wiener out there for Toronto going up against Shred Astaire for St. Louis.
Oh, Senor Wiener just getting knocked to the floor by St. Louis's blockers. He is being pulled back as Shred Astaire makes another scoring pass. Swoops his way up the outside of that pack, just drops the shoulder so elegantly. Senor Wiener is still fighting St. Louis's defense. Let's see what he can do.
So 12-point jam there for St. Louis.
Score now sitting at 292 for the Gatekeepers and 33 for Toronto.
Static Shock out there jamming for St. Louis. Looks like Stevie out there for Toronto. Static Shock going to be your lead jammer here.
Static Shock just running wild right now for the Gatekeepers. D-Ray having taken a star pass for Toronto. Beautiful apex jump by Static Shock before he calls off that jam.
Next up on the jammer line for St. Louis, that's Jammy Pacquiao going up against, that looks like Luke Ness Monster for Toronto. Gatekeepers up at the front of the pack. Down one blockers, Nixalot sits in the penalty box.
It is a foot race. Luke Ness Monster just running up on Jammy Pacquiao. And the jam is off. I do believe I see 4 points for the Gatekeepers, 0 for Toronto. Coming to the conclusion of a 12-0 jam. Gatekeeper score sitting at 316 to Toronto's 33.
And we're going to have a timeout called here by Toronto. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we have about an hour break plus however early we finish this game up. So 4 p.m. Central Time will be the start of the next game, and that is going to be Magic City versus the Pittsburgh Undead. Then at 6 p.m. we have the Mexico City Disorder versus the St. Louis Gatekeepers. And then at 8 p.m. our nightcap, the Concussion versus the Misfits. And then we have a whole nother day on Sunday, 6 more games on Sunday. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the schedule for the International House of Derby Invitational. So Senior Wiener are going to take the jammer line for Toronto, going up against Cat Daddy for St. Louis.
Cat Daddy dancing up the inside of that pack now, pushing his way against Biff Malibu. Cat Daddy is out of the pack. Senior Wiener looking for a way up the in as well, fighting his way past Monster Jam and Spin Diesel. And we have a Wiener on the loose. Senior Wiener coming in trying to make his scoring pass for Toronto as his blocker McWilliam goes to the box. And Cat Daddy calls off the jam, giving us 4 more points for the Gatekeepers.
So Toronto will be down a blocker, a 4-on-3 pack advantage for St. Louis here as this next jam starts. Stevie on the line for Toronto. And it's going to be Magnum out there for St. Louis.
Magnum PIMP making it look easy, just runs up the inside of that pack, facing no resistance at all. He is back around on his scoring run. Let's get into it. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what he can do. A quick spin up the inside of that pack as he picks up 4 points for the Gatekeepers. And another 4 points for the Gatekeepers as Biff Malibu is released from the penalty box, hoping to add a little power to Toronto's defense, see if they can shut Magnum down.
Magnum with another 4-point pass, 12 so far this jam. So picks up one more there and calls that jam off. Next up, it's Shredda Stare out there for St. Louis, and that is D-Ray out there for Toronto. Both teams at full strength in the pack. And Shredda Stare, lead jammer, St. Louis.
D-Ray looking for a way around St. Louis's defense. He is pulled to the back of the pack by Sir Nix-a-Lot, seeing what he can do now, seeing if he can make up some of that distance. And he is pulled back again by Spin Diesel as Shredda Stare runs up on Toronto's defense, makes his way around them, picks up 4 more points for the Gatekeepers. And I see Disco to Box calling a directional penalty on Biff Malibu, telling him to go sit down and think about what he did.
So just under 9 minutes to go here in the second half. The score is St. Louis 345, Toronto 33. So it'll be Luke Ness Monster on the line now for Toronto. And that is Static Shock out there for St. Louis. Oh, Static Shock slips around the outside and quickly picks up lead jammer. Luke Ness Monster, a little bit of room to work. Just
Luke Ness Monster says, anything you can do, I can do. Pushes their way past St. Louis's defense at the top of the pack. Luke Ness Monster out on a scoring run as well, seeing what he can do. Does get tripped up on the apex by number 101. That is Blint. And I do believe St. Louis's jammer has taken a seat in the penalty box, giving Luke Ness Monster the chance to score with no opposition. Let's see what he can do, if he can make anything out of that opportunity. And I do believe we now have no lead jammer, so this jam is going to run its natural 2 minutes.
another scoring pass there for Static Shock. No lead jammer. So this will be a 2-minute jam.
For those new to Derby, if you have lead jammer and you commit a penalty, you will then lose that status. So now we have no lead jammer. Luke Ness Monster has passed the star to Biff Malibu, seeing if he can have any better luck, as Static Shock makes it through for 4 more points for the Gatekeepers. Biff Malibu pushes on the back of that defense, wobbles very slightly on the apex, but he is out. Picking up some points for Toronto.
So Gatekeepers 20 on that jam, Toronto 8.
Bringing the score to 365-41.
Jammy Pacquiao now on the line for the St. Louis Gatekeepers. Senior Wiener out there for Toronto.
You know, I'm really glad Senior Wiener has all of his proper protective gear on. You don't want an unprotected wiener out here on the track. And Jammy Pacquiao makes quick work of that pack. Senior Wiener nearly clears it, but he is pulled back by St. Louis's defense. Jammy Pacquiao runs through, picks up 4 points for his team. Senior Wiener is still trying to make some work out of that defense from St. Louis. Up at the top of the pack, he's got 2 to beat, just pushing on that triangle. He's got 1 to beat. We are down to some one-on-one blocking. Senior Wiener just pushing on Spin Diesel. I can see from the faces there. Oh my goodness! Senior Wiener dropped to the floor by Monster Jam.
Spin Diesel held up Senior Wiener and stopped him, and then Monster Jam just came in and cleaned him out. So a star pass to D-Ray.
D-Ray putting on that star for Toronto. Senior Wiener says, you know what? I think I may have had enough, D-Ray. Let's see what you can do. Jammy Pacquiao calls off the jam. In a show of the sportsmanship that makes me love this sport so much, Spin Diesel helps D-Ray back onto his feet.
So Stevie on the line again for Toronto, going up against Cat Daddy for St. Louis. Both packs at full strength, like empty penalty box.
Cat Daddy just does a little tiny jump out over the apex, makes it through, has picked up lead jam for St. Louis. Stevie still looking for a way around St. Louis's defense as Cat Daddy runs through and picks up 4 more points. That was a 12-0 jam. So our score is now at 393 for the Gatekeepers and 41 for Toronto. Just under 2.5 minutes left in this game.
So it's going to be Luke Ness Monster now on the line for Toronto, going up against Magnum PIMP for St. Louis. Magnum PIMP, your lead jammer. Oh, Monster Jam just stands up. Luke Ness Monster.
Luke Ness Monster knocked into the infield. They are unbothered, standing back up.
Nix with a nice force out on the outside, and that's going to bring Biff Malibu all the way back as the star pass for Toronto.
Magnum PIMP just stops a little bit, takes some advice from his bench, goes ahead and calls off that jam.
So it looks like we're going to get one more jam in. 45 seconds on the clock. The score, St. Louis 409, Toronto 41. And it's going to be Shred a Stare on the line for St. Louis here in what is likely to be the final jam of the game. And for Toronto, and we're going to get a timeout here. D-Ray calling the timeout. So Toronto with the timeout. Don't forget, we're going to have a break between these two games. The next game will be at 4 p.m. Central Time. That is going to be Magic City versus the Pittsburgh Undead. At 6 p.m., Disorder versus Gatekeepers. And at 8 p.m., Concussion versus Magic City to end our day 1 of the International House of Derby Invitational. We'd like to thank all of you in attendance here today, as well as those watching on our Twitch stream. Right now, I'm showing 143 people watching the Twitch stream. All right, back in action. What will likely be the final jam of the game. Senior Wiener out there for Toronto. Shred a Stare, your lead jammer for St. Louis. Senior Wiener actually able to get out quickly. And that is going to do it. 1 point there for Senior Wiener to finish out the game. 4 points for Shred a Stare. So the unofficial final right now is going to be 413 to 42. I do believe that is going to be your official final here in just a moment.
All right.
It is now your official final.
All right, folks, go ahead, take some time for lunch. Head on back to watch more Derby. I'm Kitty Black. Thank you so much. Have the day you deserve.